Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Woke by Accident podcast. It is a weekly chat about socially conscious topics impacting the culture. Hey guys, so we are happy to have one of our favorite co-hosts in the house today. One of our most cultured, experienced podcast brothers, Sambaza, host and creator of the Sambaza podcast, who proudly hails from the Republic of Kenya in East Africa. He is a two-time nominee for Best African Diasporing Podcast, and he has been a presenter at the Afros and Audios podcast festivals discussing Pan Africanism, and he is slated to be an ambassador for Afros and Audios for 2024. Welcome, Sambaza.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm here another week. Sorry about being the technical difficulties, but we're here. All right. What we got
Yes.
today? I'm
Yes.
stoked.
Wonderful. And so, as you guys may know, we have been doing our series in honor of International Women's Month as we round out the month highlighting extraordinary stories, achievements, and contributions of great women from diverse cultures across the globe. And the goal has been to amplify the voices of women who have made significant impact in various fields from activism, science, business, arts, health. We had some great conversations about health, and so now we're going to get into some topics about art and activism. So, introduction, we do have a special guest for you guys today. We're so excited about this guest. Let's see.
Before we bring in the
Oh,
guest, I was trying
yes,
to figure
Sambaza.
out something. I had a note. Somebody sent me something regarding, I'm new in this thing of, what do you call this thing? Uh, I'm on Sambaza podcast. I'm trying to find out who the people sent me some information. But anyway, we got a shout out for. I'm trying to talk. This is a topic that we had been discussing regarding mental health for women with Denise Moore. Now I'm trying to go into my inbox because somebody sent me. Oh, here we are. People said something on our account, on my account. Sorry, they had said
Okay.
something. This was with Denise. Let me view all. All right, so
And the biggest issue that Black women face is that Black women stereotype. That stereotype really causes a lot of women to not ask for help, to stay quiet, to be dismissive of their symptoms, to put other people first, to have a lack of boundaries, and to just not seek mental health at all. Definitely. And when you say that Black
okay, so on the comment section, this the ladies for they call themselves We Three Queens of Africa. They're on TikTok. So what they say was, yet women supporting women is a thing we believe in firmly. We need to show vulnerability to men and women, but of course, we need to feel safe in order
and the
to
biggest,
do this.
the biggest,
So that's what they had said about that. I just wanted to let you guys know about it. Okay, and let's continue with our guest today.
For sure. We appreciate the feedback on social media. You guys are welcome to reach out to us. We certainly appreciate that. As we mentioned, we do have a special guest today. We're really excited. Our next guest is a sixth generation sewing enthusiast, African American literature professor and creator of the Stitch Please podcast and Black Women Stitch community. The Stitch Please podcast is the official show of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. Our guest truly embodies activism in addition to all of her projects and has created an incredible community. Black Women Stitch uh, has done amazing work, and our guest has just won the 2024 Ambie Award winner, Lisa Woolfork. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here. This was very generous of you to share your platform with me. Thanks to the folks who are in the comments as we were waiting for Sambaza Hill to show up and get us there and get us going. But we're so happy. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Let's hear that one more time. You are what? A winner of.
An Ambie Award for Best DIY Podcast of 2024.
Oh,
And it feels like I need to clarify that DIY is not, does not, the DIY Podcast Award is not given to podcasts about DIY.
Okay.
It's because they're like, oh, you're a sewing podcast. So you must have been up against knitters and crocheters and woodworkers. And, that is some pretty fierce competition because them knitting needles are pretty much straight up weapons. I think,
right.
so it could have been touch and go, but DIY in this category for the Ambies refers to podcasts that publish episodes for $1,000 or less.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
that's what a DIY podcast is. That's what they
awesome.
think someone in their basement. I am currently in my basement. Um, Making a podcast is spending per episode,
That's
Right.
what's up. That's what's up. So I have a
which I'm
question.
not. I am not spending that. I wish.
Right.
So I have
Give
a
me the
question on this.
opportunity to have a budget like that.
All right, Lisa, I have a question. Your website tells your audience about your activism story. Can you share with us your journey into activism and what inspired you to become an advocating for women's rights and Black lives?
I was inspired to do it by outrage. I was inspired to do it by love. And by it, I refer to gradually beginning to mobilize and then eventually more fully activate into the aggressive resistance against white supremacy. And that showed up in our community in Charlottesville, Virginia, as early as, well, for quite some time, but it started to matter in around 2013, 2014, when the statues are Confederate slash Civil War participation trophies that were installed in these public parks as a way to, to set up racial segregation. We were trying to get those removed. And the white supremacists didn't like that. And so they came and invaded the community. There were fights in the street. There were, in the afternoon, a young woman was murdered. And my spouse and I were standing there when that car drove through the crowd. And I was motivated to stand there because I just couldn't believe that it was real. I could not believe that in this day and age, in 2017, that people were still having actual Klan rallies, that people were still, the Nazis lost. They absolutely lost. And yet you can still see their insignias all manner of places. And this resurgence of fascism that was ushered in by the Orange president really shook a lot of people to their core. It didn't shake me to my core,
Mhm.
but it it emboldened a lot of things and a lot of behaviors. It generated so much unkindness, and I just want my children to have a better world. I think that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants the next generation to be able to do better than them. And the idea that I could tell my grandmother that I was going to a Klan rally, I was protesting a Klan rally. My grandmother at the time was 104 years old,
Oh, awesome.
and she was born in 1913. And the idea that the same Klan that terrorized her, that could terrorize her as a girl, was the same one trying to terrorize my children? No, no, enough already. And so anything I could do to lend my voice, my support, um, to be out and take up space in the streets, all whatever was required was what I was committed to doing.
Hmm.
Well, let me say that we're proud of the work that you've done, and we're glad that you stood up because some people would not have. it's definitely disturbing what went on during that time, but a lot of people would be complacent and not do anything, you know. So it takes a really special and a, you know, a strong type of person. I have to be careful about that word strong, but it really does, you know, to say, hey, I want to do something about this, you know?
Yeah, it just seems like too often we don't realize how much power we really have.
Hmm.
And whatever power we have as individuals, it is amplified in exponential ways when we move in solidarity with others. And that is the lesson I believe that is so necessary for surviving and thriving in a climate that is increasingly anti Black. And so, as we have the Supreme Court ready to both reinstate the orange president and abolish anything that is directed and given to Black people, from the NAACP to the United Negro College Fund to the Fearless Fund for Black Women Venture Capital. Black Women Venture Cap, I think Black women get something like 3% of all venture capital. And
Hmm.
so this fund was created to help more Black women get venture capital. And now the same people that dismantled affirmative action are going after the freedom of the Fearless Fund so that Black women will always have 2% or less of funding.
Wow.
Oh,
It
that's crazy.
is it is utterly mean-spirited. It is completely deliberate.
Hmm.
And as we are running around trying to figure out how we can hustle up this or hustle up that, they are moving in sync with things like, I think it's Project 24 and all of these other conservative agendas that they've put in place for a decade.
Right.
Mhm.
You know, so in the same way that we could be at the height in some ways of um Black visibility, Black, to, shortening the wealth gap and all that type of stuff, or the idea that women, there was a time, I think 50, as many as like maybe 50, 60 years ago, women, married women could not have a checking account in their own name,
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
you know? And so there were all of these rules about these kind of, normal things that we take for granted now. I would never have imagined that they have outlawed abortion and they are coming for birth control. They are coming for the pill. They're
Mm.
coming for all of these things that made women allowed to live into their full purpose, into their full personhood, and not be chained down to reproducing. And when I say women here, I'm really talking about white women because that's who they care about. They want more white women to have babies. They are really not concerned about how many we have or don't have.
Now,
Wow.
on that note, I have a question though. This is on because we are celebrating International Women's Month, and you think the issues that we're having here will they impact the woman that is out there globally with the same issues? And do you think that there are other pressing matters in the global sector um, regarding women and their rights? I know we have FGM. That's one of the things, but
Right.
it's not here.
I think that this is part of the same, it all stems from the same question.
Hmm.
I do not know what right is more important to any human than the right to determine what you do or do not do with your own body. There is nothing, the wealth gap, the education gap, the all of these different elements, none of these matter if girls do not have the chance to have the fullness of a life experience because they stop going to school when they get their periods,
Hmm.
or on the days when they have their periods, they can't go to school. So their education is disrupted and they're always missing between, they miss a week of school every month for the part of their secondary education. And so then they can't graduate or whatever. So I don't, I don't, it's also kind of odd to me that Ireland put abortion in their country's constitution
Mm.
And they are a very Catholic nation overall.
Okay.
And the US, which says it prides itself on freedom from religion, which is what Jefferson's words meant. He was the first to draft, Thomas Jefferson was the first to draft the Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom. Um, and because he didn't want people to be forced to be any religion. And now we have these so called Christians trying to force everybody to live as they do.
Right.
And it's working. So
It is.
yeah, I think it sucks. I think but it's the kind of thing that can be best combated or best mitigated by building community. And not commodity, not sign up for $9.99 and then we can do X, Y, and Z, but true, complex, creative community institutions, groups, organizations, these types of entities that can bolster and fortify us to get the things that we want after the dominant society has said we are not allowed to have them. That is what we will need.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely touched on a lot of the issues, you know, going on. I will try to get Lisa back in here. And shout out to the chat. We have 11 people watching. We appreciate you guys. If you have an opportunity, please like, share, and subscribe. There you are,
Share
Lisa.
the live, share the live, share the live.
Please do. Please do. But yeah, those issues and, you know, Sambaza mentioned from a global standpoint, um, how can we be effective in this? You know, there's strength in numbers. Clearly, you spoke to that.
I have this question regarding my wife believes in this movie. I forget. I was trying to figure out what it was. I know it's there in my mind, but it was about where it was a fictional character where women were trying to run away from the US going into Canada, and they were being forced to have kids, and they were all rounded up together.
Handbill.
Handmaid's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
She was saying sometime, that's her fear actually. The US is going to be like that because at this rate, this is where we're getting to. These are the vibes that she's getting, and she's so fearful about what where the woman where the woman of today is going to start encountering tomorrow's future. Something is not going to be right, and I don't know. I know I'm a man sitting here. I cannot speak for the women, but there's something that has to be done from from the man's perspective. We have to sit and listen to the women and try to figure out what exactly it is that we want to have, and have this conversation in both understanding where the problem is. I don't know if it's some corporate deal where they sit in an office and think about stuff and make that without having the representation of the woman and asking them that question. Maybe that's where it is lacking here. What do you think about that?
Hmm. I think that you are attributing ignorance to something that I think is based in malice.
Okay. Hmm.
I do not think that the problems that we are currently having with the global rollback
Hmm.
of women's bodily autonomy, I don't believe that is the function of men not knowing enough about I mean, if I'm understanding your comment correctly,
Hmm.
and I might be misunderstanding,
No,
but
no.
what I'm is that right? Is that am I correct in my understanding before I go down this path?
Yeah.
I think it's not the case that it's ignorance. I think too often we use the word ignorance when some people are just malicious. Some people gain most of their power and influence by depriving other people of their own power and influence. There are some who truly believe and have been indoctrinated to believe that women are inferior and are put on this earth to be baby makers. And by that reason, they tend to believe very firmly in gender as a scientific fact, when it is not, when gender is a social fact, not a scientific fact.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not ignorance. It's not ignorance. Ignorance would imply something that could be corrected. Ignorance is solved by knowledge. And how much knowledge have we had, to name one example, of police killing unarmed Black people? We have had lots of knowledge that someone could say, oh, this happened, this was wrong. This happened, it was wrong. This happened again, and it was wrong. It's happened again and again and again and again and again and again. That is not a learning curve. That is not something that can be corrected with knowledge. That is not happening because the system is broken and can be repaired through good faith efforts. That is happening because the system is working as it was intended. And there are people whose meanness and hypocrisy and entrenchment in government positions, elected office, means that they care only about what suits them. And in some ways, the Republican Party. So I think that it's a distraction to think that all we need is a sit down around the table, heart to heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's not it. That's not what's going to fix any of this. But then we have to ask ourselves, do they want it fixed? There are some people for whom this was a great comment from.
So the comments that are coming
Wait,
up. Well,
Sambaza.
oh, wait,
Sambaza.
I was gonna go to the
Hang
comments
on.
here.
Hang on, Sambaza. She,
Hello?
yeah, go ahead, Lisa. You were in the middle of a thought. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was trying to think about what that I gotta catch it again. It was about, I'll think of it again. I can't think of it right now. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me if it was worth repeating. But I just want to say that I don't think any of this is an accident. There's a great comment in the chat from Tiffany Bird that it is intentionally opposed upon us. This is intentionally put upon us. And until we have, I can tell you, I was surprised very much that they were able to repeal Roe versus Wade, which has led to so much tragedy across the country, including things like pregnant 10-year-olds who were impregnated by their sibling. And this person has no business having a baby. This person is a baby.
Right.
And there are lots of people who the public sentiment in favor of abortion was at a high. They were able to get, this was a 50-year plan to get the justices in place. They have a majority. They will be passing law after law, making the country meaner and meaner. And in 30 years, maybe we'll get a chance to have, a return to some type of equity. But I'm convinced these bitches are not going to be happy until they put us back in chains. And they found the way to do that already with the prison industrial complex.
Right.
But now they're finding other ways by cutting off education, cutting off business funding, cutting off all of these different things.
Right. And I was thinking, will create a way to break down the systemic barriers. It will take new leadership, obviously new legislation. But like you said, they've been working on this for years with putting the
Decades.
justices, decades. So how can we break that down?
I have friends who do not want to break it down. They want the whole thing to expand, to basically fall apart based on its own weight. It's just going to
Mm,
fall apart on its own because it's untenable.
mm,
So these are the friends who are very much against voting, voting empty, voting blank. Um, they do not believe that voting is a solution. They do not believe in voting as harm mitigation. I am of the opinion that voting is harm mitigation, though some say it's delaying the inevitable. I do continue to vote, even though I get the feeling that it counts less and less. But at least I feel like I'm doing a small part to not put a fascist in office. But at this point, honestly, when you're trying to decide, are you going to vote for the fascist or not the fascist? Fascism has already won. There's no way that a fascist should get so far in a democratic institution.
right.
And
Correct.
it really, for me, highlights how white solidarity, white fragility, this fear that white people have of being outnumbered because of how shittily they treat minorities, and this fear. This was the same fear that Thomas Jefferson had. This was somebody who enslaved over 600 people during the course of his life, and one of the things that made him so anxious about Haiti was that Haiti was killing masters. Or if they get free, it's going to be a race war, and there's more of them than us, and then we'll be the slaves. Like, cannot imagine just living side by side,
Mm-hmm.
because they cannot manage to live side by side without dominating. They just assume that everyone else is.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say all the time, they look at you and say, "Why are you eating steaks? I'm supposed to be eating steak, not you." Well, I have another question though, with regard to this, with the activism, because you are really strong into the activism. As a female activist, sorry, my words are getting twisted here. Do you have any common challenges or obstacles that you deal with whenever you get out there and start saying, "Hey, this is what we need to do. This is how we need to prepare for this, or this is what's coming."
I think it all depends on how you decide to get involved. When I was very involved in different campaigns, there was plans. It's not like, when you see a big demonstration out in the street, that has been planned. Planned in the sense, everyone's going to come at this time. We will start, we're going to go this direction or that direction. There's not like impromptu planning on the street as it is happening. There's things that need to go in place in order to help people feel, and not feel, but to be safe. I think, um, in terms of obstacles, I think they're the same obstacles that Black folks experience, which is why we're out there in the first dang place. You know, these same obstacles. Now, there can sometimes be internal obstacles, and there are, I think any and every um, social movement group has internal um, internal relations that can sometimes be straining. You know what I'm saying? That these are that's human nature. And it also is this idea, I think, which is paradoxically true, that many activists that I know are conflict averse. Like, we don't want, the reason that I do it, and I have a few friends who agree, is because we want everybody to be okay. We want everybody to be okay. um that's why we're out here, because we want everybody to be okay. And so sometimes there can be internal things that might be better off addressed head on, or, but that's not something that I think, at least in my experience, that I personally have been very good at.
Okay, I have a follow up question with this. Sorry, Jen. This one just follow up with to what you said. Now, what is a win to you when you go to a rally or when you are
Hmm.
going to protest about something? I don't know which one you've gone to, but let's just say you went and the one that Roe versus Wade, the one that failed. I'm just putting an
Mm.
example. If you went there and you went to a rally before it was declared, right? And then
Hmm.
after let's say you did the rally at 12 noon, then the courts came at 3 o'clock and said, "Look, we're overturning Roe versus Wade." To
Yeah.
you,
Well,
what
at
is the
that
win?
point, mhm,
Is that a win because you have
I
amplified
see.
the issue, or is a win whereby you overturn the previous or you solve the problem? Let me put it that way.
Well, I think that once that last justice was appointed to the Supreme Court, people knew that Roe was going to be overturned. Nobody's standing there before the judge, before the decision was rendered, had any doubt in their minds that this was happening. They weren't out there to change their mind. You cannot change the mind of the Supreme Court by shouting from outside a window. That's not how they operate at all. And the books are already cooked. As soon as Barrett got confirmed, it was over. That was the nail in the coffin. So you might ask, why go out there then?
Hmm.
Why go out there? What is the point of going out there? We have lost this right that has kept, for the last 50 years, kept women in, has allowed women to control what happens to them in their bodies. There are times, unfortunately, in our very violent society where a woman is forced into pregnancy against her will, a girl, a childbearing person, however you want to use, a birthing person, however you want to use, however word, I think all of these are valid. This person is forced into a pregnancy. That has happened since the beginning of time because of patriarchy and the disposability of girls.
Right.
For the last 50 years, these girls who have had this forced upon them might be forced to be pregnant, but they would not be forced to be a parent. They would not be forced to bring into the world something that was forced upon them.
Okay.
And so even those folks who were out there were folks out there who were celebrating, and there were folks out there who were angry. And I think the point of going out there is so that, one, the win, and I don't think we think in terms like that.
Hmm.
I think that there are wins every day. I think the fact that we are even out there is a win. The belief, the shared belief that we will win, that is a win.
Okay.
To maybe turn and change someone's mind, to make someone feel more emboldened, to help some girl speak with more confidence about, things that are bothering her at her school or whatever.
Right. And then it made me think
These are the things.
like,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jen, go ahead.
oh, for sure. No, and I guess maybe it's hard to, I dabble with activism myself. And that was part of the motivation for starting this podcast, that aftermath of like Brown and other
Yes.
movements. Had an opportunity to speak with one of the leading activists in the Brown movement. Shout out to Tori Russell, and I know
Oh,
he's been all over the world with this, but on the streets too. Just you have it, like you said. There's many ways to get involved, and work the movement. You know what I mean? Everybody, like he said on right here on the show. Everybody ain't gonna be on the streets. We need people to, what I'm saying, make some
yes.
sandwiches. We need
Yes,
people to make some phone
absolutely.
calls.
Absolutely. Make phone calls, stuff envelopes. There's
See,
pass out water,
yes,
absolutely. Absolutely.
for sure. I want to wake that up for sure. And I
And
forget about
that,
that.
not everybody can do nobody can do everything,
Hmm.
but everybody can do something.
There you go.
And about
And
how
Definitely.
we need
many,
everybody to do something.
like about how many initiatives or how many issues do you take in hand, let's say within the year, over the years? How many have you looked into, and which one is more
Hmm.
memorable to you?
I don't think I think that way. I think about what are the issues that are impacting my community locally. What are the issues that are affecting Black people nationally and globally?
Hmm.
And what are the issues that I know are all interconnected, because it's all interconnected. And I think that that's the message that gets lost a lot. And this is also why cross solidarity organizing can be so important, because we can that there's no single issue there is no single issue struggle. The same people that want to take away anything to help Black people gain, close the equity gap, close the gap. This is a huge demonstrable gap that exists because of the systems in place that made it so. They want that gap to grow. They want it to grow.
Hmm.
Hmm.
They want us to have less, and they want themselves to have more. And they want us to agree with it. It's absurd.
Right. It is.
And so my apologies. I'm not sure where I was going with that. But
It's okay.
needless to say, it's very frustrating, and that we need to understand that we are each other's blessings and we are each other's burdens and we are each other's bounty. And that solidarity, building networks of trust, building relationships of trust will be something that will be very helpful in the days to come when things get mean. And that's always how it's been. That's how we've been able to survive some of the plagues of racism, is because of community
Definitely.
and building what we need when they said we couldn't have it.
Okay. Question: will a woman be able to have equality at some point, be it breaking the glass ceiling, or pay the pay gap that is there that we know of regarding women? It happens even in the other society, in the greater international society. And equality, like even in parliaments, they say, oh, we need to have a two-thirds gender rule or one-third gender rule, where well, I still have one-third. There's a problem with that, but they still, like in the Kenyan parliament, they cannot get a third of the women in, even though
Mm.
they are trying. They say we're going to try, and it's part of the constitution, but they're still failing on it. Do you think we could achieve some of these processes to where we will have equality? Now I'm talking on a global scale, and maybe even you can still talk about it in a local scale in the US.
I think the number of the number of women stepping into elected office has greatly increased. I think in the wake of the orange president, I think that there have been more women mayors, more women, being involved in all of these things at all of these levels. I don't think, however, I don't think having a woman in place will make things any better for women. The woman who drove the nail into the coffin of abortion rights was a woman. A woman person did that, you know, and ew. So the same is true for, is the answer to police brutality more Black cops? I think not. So, in terms of equality and will it happen? I don't know. Shit, I hope so. Um, I really do. But I think where I'm investing, where I'm putting my money, where I'm putting my money and where I'm putting my hopes is on us, is on our ability to gain, our ability to reinforce and support each other, our ability to connect and build. that's what I'm hopeful for. I don't know if having more women in Congress, more women, I don't know if that's going to make any difference. There's plenty of women in that support the orange president that are horrible humans.
But
And them being women doesn't make them any less horrible or more horrible. They're just horrible. So,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry about that.
What do you want to say, Jen?
Yeah.
You had something to say, Jen.
Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Sambaza.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hang on.
Anyway,
Let me make
so
sure all my stuff is straight. Sorry about
I have
that,
another
guys.
question. In your opinion, right? What are some of the effective strategies of creating meaningful change and breaking down systemic barriers that perpetuate the gender inequality?
Are you asking? Can you repeat the question, or let
Sure.
me repeat the
I'll
question?
no no no.
Um,
I'll repeat it
Go
again for
ahead.
you. In your
Thank you.
opinion, what are some of the effective strategies for creating meaningful change and breaking down systemic barriers that perpetuate gender inequality?
Okay. What kind of steps or actions do I take to break down, or suggestions do I have to kind of break
Suggestions,
down
yes.
systemic equality or to
Yes.
dismantle harmful things in place? Okay.
Yes.
I think that sometimes these things can happen from within. So say for example, you work at a company and there's not that many black folks, and you can support and mentor each other. You can build each other up so that the institution itself becomes more just and more fair for the next POC who is stepping into that place. You can, and that's again, if you're working from within. And I think that in some ways, folks who are within really are best poised to make those types of changes. Um, I'm trying to think of other ways to disrupt systems of harm. Um, and the challenge has been, I think one of the best ways to disrupt a harmful system, like a harmful state system or state institution or whatever, is to cut off its funding. And that's what the defund police movements have been about, is about reallocating funding from, for example, everyone says that police are not equipped to handle mental health emergencies. They're not social workers, et cetera. Well, why don't you take some of the money that you're giving to the police and give it to social workers so that we can get actually trained people to intervene in these cases and they don't end up escalating so quickly. That's an idea.
Hmm.
So I think that a lot of these solutions and far many more than I've suggested are absolutely possible. It just takes goodwill and some creative thinking.
Jen, did you have a question?
No, I had kind of touched on that earlier, but that's okay.
I
Yeah,
have one.
go ahead.
Is the girl child in trouble? Can you hear me?
Is the what in
Is the
trouble?
I
girl
could
child in trouble?
Okay, there we go.
Did you hear my question? I said, you want to hear one more
I
time?
heard, is the girl child in trouble? So I don't
Yes.
know. Jen, is the girl child in trouble?
I mean, we should be concerned about her. You know what I mean? But I feel like the children are the future too. And we should look toward, children to be those leaders, those potential leaders that could make changes in legislation and be those future leaders that could make some of these changes that are going to take years and years to break down, you know?
Yes, I
So,
do.
So what are you gonna say to the mother out there who's gonna come on to listen to this podcast regarding the girl child? What steps should they take to empower the girl child?
Hmm. I think for me as a girl, just what I remember is I think listen to them. Listen to them.
hmm
Mhm.
Listen to what they have to say. If you show them that they are worth listening to, that can be a really beautiful way to instill in them a sense of value, and they will be less patient for people talking to them any kind of way.
Okay.
So I think listening to them, investing their ideas with your own confidence. I think giving them a chance to make mistakes, giving them a chance to try things. But I think listening to them and respecting their choices, as small as they may be. I think that can be incredibly empowering. I think it can be at least from a parenting perspective of the generation of which I was raised, which was that children really weren't like to be paid attention to. My mother was exceptional because she was a teacher, and so she knew how important it was she knew how to care well for children, even though she was, she was a disciplinarian, but that wasn't her primary feature. Like, she was really very specific with us, and because we were, each of us, I'm the oldest of three girls, and we were all very different. But I think if you want to raise a leader, listen to them. Just listen. You don't have to agree, but you can definitely listen and show that you're listening. I think that can be a really good gift for a kid who so much of their lives are out of their control.
Oh,
So that's what I think I recommend.
That is a good one. And then Lisa, you shared your activism story with us. We appreciate that. I want you to touch on your art and how you kind of married the two. And I love that your podcast just, kind of brings that to life.
before we run into that, I want one last thing. As a man, right? What
I'm
should
not
we
going
be
to ask you. I'm not going to answer your question because Jen is staring daggers at you right now, and I'm going to
I
save your life.
know.
And
I
I'm
know.
going to answer instead Jen's question, because
All right.
Jen is
All
like,
right.
look, what you're not going to do is show up 20 minutes late and step on my question. So, Jen, your question was about the intersection of art and activism. And for me, I think that's a really vital thing. It has been so popular that it has a name. It's called craftivism. Craftivism. And so craftivism is exactly that. It's people who are they're sewing protest banners. I know someone who has an entire protest banner lending library. There's people who are making quilts that that critique and expose, and promote the idea. These quilts promote the idea of prison abolition. They are working with historical documents to show, among other things, that in Alabama, the same place where there's a lot of the same place where there were like a lot of different plantations
Mhm.
is the same place that has a bunch of prisons on it now. Or another fact that I thought was interesting is that when you look at the South in general, the same places that back in the day had more enslaved people than white free people
Mhm.
or white people, those states, those regions still have high gun ownership today.
Mhm.
That is the best indicator of if a city will have high gun ownership. Did it have slavery? And did the enslaved people outnumber the white people? Isn't that wild?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty
that's
well.
a trip.
That's wild. So yeah, I think that Tiffany, she sums it up. She's like, about, helping girls and boys. You have to let them lead, let them make the choices that they can. Let them, and I think
How
that,
you know my question? How you know my question? Well, anyway, that was the question actually.
but
How
so
do we
yes, I
help
think
as a man?
the
Yeah,
same for boys.
right,
The
right.
same for
Okay.
boys. I had two boys. So the same is for the same idea, the same stuff I tried to get, I just said is the way that I try to be with my boys.
Hmm.
I don't know if they would tell that same story, but that's what I tried to do. And, at the time, it's kind of like when the kids are little, it's kind of like you're riding a unicycle and juggling a whole bunch of oranges that are also on fire. I don't know if I did a good job sitting down with them and making sure that they felt heard. I don't know if I did that or not.
Okay.
But that is the answer that I would give, and I would like to hope that that was what I did.
Amen. Amen. I think you did a great job. If you're from what we know of you, the little bit we know of
We'll let
you,
my
yeah,
boys have to be the
yeah,
judge of that. My
exactly.
friends can say it, but the boys have to be the one to say. I
You're right
can't
about
say.
that. Yes, but
I can't be the one to say it.
let's not miss out on talking about your podcast, Stitch Please.
There we
I
go.
think we have some time where we can put in a little bit on knowing who you are with regard to Stitch Please. All right, not Lisa the activist, but the podcaster. So tell us about Stitch
Yes.
Please.
I love my podcast. So the Stitch Please podcast, it centers Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing, and we are a living archive of Black creativity with needle and thread. We have over 200 episodes. There are individual episodes, solo episodes with me talking about sewing projects, about organization, about tips and tricks, certain things that I'm working on, as well as historical elements and historic things sometimes. And then there are some amazing conversations with artists, museum curators, quilters, home sewists, fashion designers, fashion design students. I recently had last summer, I had a student who just graduated from design school. She had just finished exhibiting work at New York Fashion Week, and she was on her way to Paris the following week. So
Wow.
I talked to some like amazing people, authors, all sorts of folks who love sewing and who love quilting or involved in needle arts or fiber arts. And it's been really fun. So I was nominated for the second time in the DIY podcast category. And as I said, that's just basically a podcast where you do it yourself. That's a podcast that has a budget of $1,000 or less per episode. That counts as DIY. And I, 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 when you fill out these forms, you have to fill out a representative, someone who can accept the award on your behalf if you are not going to be there. And so I knew that Crystal was going to be there. So I asked her, and she said, yes, she would be there. And I knew Dominic was going because he said that he was going. And, that was really great. And so throughout the entire of the Ambies, this is the nomination. Isn't that really exciting? I had no presupposition that I would win. I thought, because the podcast is independently created, or because it's not part of a network, or because it's very small budget, very, 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 very small budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's There's a lot of other shows in the category. So you have history, you have I think it was Latinx Can, it was a Culture Kids program, it was Beans Without Borders, it was Black is America. And so that was so weird that since Dom was also in the same category, I was like, get out of my category. Why are you in my category? And so because I think that, I feel like I do yeah, all is to say, I had no idea that I would
Well
win.
deserved, and we are proud of you, Lisa. That's awesome. So congrats
Thank you. I'm
again.
very excited. I'm very grateful. I'm so happy. I'm glad that I stuck with it. I'm glad that I continue to stick with it. I'm glad that I have so many exciting people to talk with, and that I still really love sewing, and
Yeah.
this has given me a chance to kind of deepen that relationship.
Yeah, this is such important work. Look, but I mean, sewing and what you're doing with this is our culture. And so I think it's like you said, it's freedom, like literally freedom. So, and our history. It really is.
And I told you we share the same
Thank you.
passion that when you do your sewing, and I heard you on the video, it reminded me of my mom when she was when she used to sew, and
Mm,
when the sewing machine runs, it gave me nostalgic memories with
Yes,
her. Yeah, so I really
yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank
Before we
you.
forget, what are your socials? How can we find you?
Oh, yes, please, please. You can find me at Black Women Stitch. We are at Black Women Stitch on Instagram, Black Women Stitch on TikTok, Black Women, but with no vowels. So it's Black WMN Stitch because it was too long to be the other way on TikTok. I mean, on X, Black Women Stitch on Threads. And that's how you can find us on socials. We've got a lot of fun videos there. We also have some promo snippets about the podcast and just some some fun sewing related and sometimes not sewing related things that you can find both in our reels, stories, and in the still feed. So do check that out.
yes.
And also the Black Women Stitch Patreon is a very
Mm,
fun place. It has the videos of all of our episodes that have video elements to them.
nice.
There's also things like swatch cards, the same swatch cards that I use to swatch my fabric. There's PDFs of those in there. If I'm sewing a particular pattern, I make labels, sticky labels for every piece that I cut out, and I put those
Mm,
labels in the Patreon. So there's
nice.
lots of different stuff for folks to find there as well. But I'm so grateful to you, Jen, to Sambaza, to the Woke by Accident podcast. Thank you so much for having me this evening.
Oh, thank you for having us. We appreciate you being here and the work that you're doing. Please continue on, and you give all the independent content creators hope that we can live large like you one day. So
Larger,
yeah,
larger,
okay.
larger, much larger.
We'll wake that up for sure, and we'll have those links posted, guys. Sabaza,
Is that offer for the draws that you make? Is that still open?
you know what? You're so silly.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
On that note, well, we appreciate our guests. When we rounding out the month for International Women's Month, it has been amazing. Shout out to Sambaza Podcast. He will have his merch soon. He is donning some of his upcoming merch. Go ahead and show him the T-shirt. There you go. Shout out to Sambaza Podcast. We appreciate our good, clean brother from the Republic of Kenya. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
For
Get it,
sh-
sir. Get it.
For sure. We appreciate you, sir, for joining us on the ride. And we'll have some more collaborations coming up. So stick with it, guys. We appreciate you guys. And I think that is all. You guys take care. And stick around, Lisa.